Karibuni sana.
Hi everyone. Yes, as you have heard, my name is Mogere, and I am a vineyard, and so we're going to start this session. And I believe I will start with a prayer. Let us pray. Our Father art in heaven, we ask for your presence to be with us today, and that we may learn something from this session. It's my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So today we're talking about loss, grief, and love. We chose that title because the main reason actually we are having this conversation for our sundown is because many times in our various groups we have members who lose close people to them. They lose their loved ones, and it's usually such a hard process for everyone, whether it's the ministry members who have to comfort these people during the time when they have been bereaved, whether it's these people themselves in trying to pick up the pieces and move on with life. It's always a hard process, and it's also a very hard conversation to have with everyone. And so today I and Alan will be facilitating this session. It's not going to be facilitating. We're going to be telling personal stories about our experiences with grief. In 2018, July, I lost my mom, and it's a long while back, so you don't feel bad for me. You know, every time you hear someone say, I lost someone, you're like, oh, yeah. In 2018 July, I lost my mom. Around 2018 October, Alan lost his dad. And so we're going to generally be relating from our personal experiences, how we got through this journey. And now you can tell it's almost 3 years later. It's approaching, and how the journey has been. And then we'll also talk about how to relate with people who are grieving, as well as if you're the person who is grieving, what are some of the things you could pick out from our experiences? So having introduced it like that, I hope siongei haraka. People usually say, oh, we anaongea kizungu nyingi na anaongea haraka. Yes, I hope leo siongei haraka sana. Yes, so and I will invite Alan, who will share with us, who will be going first. He will share with us his experience and a few things that he can pick from that. Yes, and then of course there will be a session where each and every one of us can ask questions and clarifications where you didn't hear anything or any parts where you want someone to repeat. You are welcome. Yes, so I'll welcome Alan Weary.
Thank you everyone. Please confirm that you can hear me and that I'm audible enough.
Yes, we can hear you and you are audible.
Very well. I would prefer to have my video on. I think it's one of what I have learned to set a rapport with when talking to people. It shows more respect to a session than speaking behind boxes we call phones and other sort of things here. So if you don't like my face, you can you can hide it off from you. But anyway, that being said, I would love us to probably just set on the stage for the session tonight. So my story, I will just take the shortest time possible. It's 8:27, and I was given 20 minutes between 8:30 and 8:50. Hopefully that time would suffice. So probably just to begin, the Bible says in Romans chapter 14 verse 8 that if we live for the Lord, and if we die for the Lord. So whether we live or die, we belong to who? We belong to the Lord. I would say that this is a topic that I don't like talking about. Honestly, in all of all the bad things that probably are associated with it. So I was born some while ago. I have been in existence for some good while. I think I have just Kina Ruth. I can see Kina Ruth here, the older folks around. And I don't know the age of Mlamba, but I just learned Mlamba means Mabuyu, and Mabuyu comes from a baobab tree, so that's among the oldest tree in the coastal provinces. So definitely Mlamba is also an old folk in Vineyard. When I joined campus, I didn't I didn't join the university church immediately, and that is one thing that I've always insisted for people, that if you get the chance to join the university church in first year, take the chance aggressively. I joined the campus church later on after first year, because I think for some reason I was exposed to the life in Nairobi a little bit early, so before I joined the university. So I used to attend church at Nairobi South, which remains my church in Nairobi to date, besides my beloved Yuonsta church. And from there, I think that's where everything began, or my journey in Nairobi began when we came. And I must admit that living with the loss of a loved one isn't something to fuss or probably to enjoy. It comes with a lot of things that um, is intertwined with your personality as well as the people around you. So when I joined my first year in 2017, I joined medical school in 2017, and I had no plans of joining medical school at that time. It was a forceful initiative. So I have grown up in a family where my dad used to be the everyone, like one man does it all. Like my dad would pay you school fees and give you the receipt. He would buy your shopping and give you the receipts and your items. He'd literally do everything and just apply all your needs with the assumption that you're still a child, so you're still growing up. So I had applied for this scholarship way earlier in Form 3 while I was in school. I think we participated in some math national contest that most of you who went to group of schools are aware of. So I earned myself a scholarship in Canada, University of Toronto to be particular. But since I was under 18 by then, my dad was in contact with my sponsors, whom were negotiating everything for my flight to Canada in September in 2017. So things turned against my expectation. So that was my sister calling. Things turned against my expectation when at the time of my reporting, or when I was supposed to be processing everything, my visa and everything, to get ready to get to school, all of a sudden my dad became unresponsive, and I was wondering what's wrong with this man. So, you know what he told me? Just join the university for a time. As I process everything, soon you will join. And this was something that we had disagreements with a little bit earlier on. There's a reason why I'm giving this story, so don't you worry, and I've timed myself. So the reason why I'm actually narrating this, I didn't apply for my courses in the university by my own self. I I turned it down because I was very sure I wouldn't study in Kenya. So my dad went behind my back and applied my courses, and he had medicine and surgery as the first choice. I remember to date. He had dental surgery as the second, pharmacy as the third choice, and electrical engineering as the fourth choice, which I didn't advise him because, in my own judgment, I doubt if I would have prioritized my courses in that order if I had resolved to study in Kenya. So when we were revising our courses in April, we had quite a bit of a disagreement because I was very wroth with him, applying for courses against my wish. And in come October, when we were enlisted to join the university, I'm like, Dad, what happened to my enrollment in Canada, And he just became cold. I didn't know what he had in mind, but he refused to give me a feedback. But he told me that as he was waiting for a feedback, I would go and register myself at the university for my 6-year program. So, as I said, I'm from a family where, let me say, my dad would just initiate everything and just give you the finished products of, like, tell you now everything is ready, your school fees is paid, so you go. So my dad declined coming to Nairobi to join to join me to register my courses in Chiromo, or just to be admitted at the university. For some reason, that gave me a lot of hiccups and problems, because I later inquired from my mom and we had bouts of disagreements on that, and I just was adamant about joining the University of Nairobi at that point. Later on, I would learn why my dad had just kept it off from me. But to cut the long story short, I ended up my mom coming to Nairobi. She was forced to come to Nairobi to force me to join the University of Nairobi, and that's a sad bit of it anyway. So when I inquired from my dad later on, when we went back for a holiday, he told me he had some pain in the leg, which wasn't resolving at any point. It was an acute problem, but it had just developed in October. That's why he couldn't come to Nairobi to join me for my admission. So that was the beginning of his sickness. Little did I know of that. So um, when we joined medical school in October, the date was 2nd, 2017. We were supposed to join in September, but there were a series of strikes that happened, so we joined in October 2nd. And the night of our reporting, there was a university strike that banned everything in the SUA offices, including the student cafeteria, just adjacent to Hall 9, sorry. So we were forced to go back home the second day after our reporting. So I was doing a crash program at Strathmore University at that time. So I decided to get back. I had deferred. I decided to get back to my studies in Strathmore. One good thing I vividly remember is we used to talk with my dad like literally almost every day, and 2 days would hardly pass without us communicating. And the best memories probably I would have is my dad was a recent convert to the Adventist faith. We hail from a Catholic family. So in 2011, my dad accepted the gospel and converted and joined the Adventist church. So every Friday, he would probably just call and wish me a blessed Sabbath, and I believe it would happen to everyone. But for me, I had a very close tie to my dad. Hopefully, I think more than anyone in my family. Uh, if they were here, they would confirm, because we were the sort of people who would be tagged in every trip. You know, that's complicated in a family of 8. Yeah, but being the eldest son, I think I had an enjoyable time from childhood, being spoiled. Sorry to use that term. So when my dad's ailment began in 2017 October, it grew so fast such that by 2018 he couldn't handle it up. So we had to advise him to come to Nairobi for treatment. And um, at this point of time, I was taking on my medical school, taking on my studies at Strathmore. I was doing a diploma, and my dad equally came to Nairobi for treatment. So I had to leave everything for a while and attend to my dad for 2 months. That was between February and March. So I missed my classes for both at that time, which was really critical and impacted somehow negatively in my studies later on. So fast forward, my dad left Nairobi in April. There was a test we had to do, but it was a cancerous test that would probably take 1 week for the results to be out. It was a bone marrow aspirate for the medical colleagues in this platform. It takes a while to be processed, so my dad decided to go back home to see off my other siblings to school due to the April holidays, and then he would come back. But it's very sad that that very time when I left him at Easy Coach, traveling back home, was the last time I ever saw him alive. So because he never came back for treatment, and I traveled back to see him just dead already. So on October 18th, not 18th, 8th October 2018. So my dad passed on. I remember having last talked to him on Friday. I had this ominous feeling that things were not good, but yeah, he succumbed on October 8th. That was on a Monday at 3 p.m. And interestingly enough, at that point in time, I was sitting for my end of year's exams in medical school, and as you all know, first year in medical school is a journey that you won't probably want to relate to over and over again. It's very traumatizing. So the timetable was so packed in a manner that I had to spare most of my time off the weekend to read, but I couldn't study because, as I've already indicated, I already had a bad feeling over the weekend that things were not right. And I had some of my friends who are not Adventists. One is called James Kyoko, and another one is called Sarah. We had gone to the airport, so on coming back, I just realized that things were not really going on well. So on Sunday, I tried to concentrate on my studies as I was preparing for the Monday paper, but to no avail. And I had to call my sister, who was with my dad at home, to check if daddy was okay on Sunday night at 1 a.m. And she told me that dad is okay. If there's anything, she would let me know. So that was on Sunday. Now on Monday, I prepared myself and went for my exams. But something very weird happened that day. At that point in time, it hadn't rained in Nairobi for a long while. But that very Monday, there was a very heavy downpour, which made me probably just sense that something was not right. So I went in, did my exams, concluded my anatomy paper, because it was scheduled for the afternoon between 2 and 5. Now, when we came out, I just switched on my phone, and because we are not allowed with phones in the exam room. And I had so many missed calls from people, like I tried calling you, and I just knew for sure something bad had happened, and I was very much aware that my dad had passed on, surprisingly. So I first met this lady called Agnes Morin outside. It was heavily raining, and then Agi was like, Alan, it's raining and you can't go anywhere right now. But I just told her, Agi, I have a problem. I feel my dad has passed on and I can't stay here. Allow me just to get back to my halls of residence. And Agi offered to walk me all the way. She used to stay in Metro, but I used to stay in the houses in Mamlaka. But I declined it, so I just walked in the storm alone until I got to my room. Now, getting into my room, I meet these two ladies, Frida Oweno, I don't know if she's here, and Charity. I saw Charity join. Yeah, they were waiting for me in my room, and I couldn't talk to them at that time. So what I did, I just called my sister. She's called Faith, and when I made a phone call home, I just heard screams and people were wailing, but no one picked. So her friend picked the call and just told me, Alan, dad amekufa, and that was it. So when I got in and found Kina Charity there, Kina Frida, I knew what to expect, but I didn't want to meet anyone or talk to anyone at that point. So I just left and went and sat out in the rain for some 2 hours until the downpour ended. So that was on Monday. On Tuesday we had exams still going on, and I remember the paper was behavioral science. So I sat for the paper on Tuesday. Quite okay. I had no problem with that. But I think on Wednesday I couldn't just take it anymore that I had lost my dad. So God, I think, just equally made a way that October 10th was declared Moi Day for the first time. It was a holiday. So when it was declared a holiday, I had time to rush home. So on Tuesday night, I took an easy coach bus home. And fast forward the entire Wednesday, I spent it in the morgue, just to view the remains of my dad, to affirm that this had actually happened. And one thing that traumatized me more, I wanted to do a post-mortem on his body. I had hired a doctor and done everything. And we were ready with the scalpel and all things to carry out a post-mortem. I think I had the strength of doing this because first year in medical school is literally interacting with corpses and dead bodies in Chiromo. So that's why I really didn't have a hard time accepting the death at first. So I traveled back to Nairobi on Wednesday night for a paper on Thursday, physiology. For some reason, I decided not to abscond my exams, which I think was a good decision I made at that time for someone who had lost a loved one. So I did all my exams to the very end, and I thank God my results came positive. I passed after some time. My dad was buried 2 months later because we had to give time for my brother to complete his KCSE exams. He's currently studying survey at the Technical University of Kenya. It's called Billy. So my experience with all this, I would say, I was supposed to talk about two things. First, my experience, and two, probably a word for those who have lost their loved ones. And all of us here, because at some point in time, trust you me, we will have to lose our loved ones. If not our spouses, if not our brothers, if not our sisters, then our parents. So uh, uh, why I didn't really grieve the loss of my dad was because being the eldest son at home, I was involved in literally every process that involved the burial and the planning. So I was engrossed in my dad's send off than in taking up the loss and just the experience itself. So you would be surprised if I said the very first time I wept after the very day my dad passed on in the presence of people. I usually considered myself to be very strong emotionally. But there's a day Vineyard Ministry came to my hostel to pay a visit after the loss of my dad. And that was just the very first week. And I remember Vivian Kimaiga making a statement, probably she's not here, that, Alan, if you really feel so low, just weep it out, just cry. The heavens and the earth are all aware that you have lost someone loved. And that was the very first time I shed tears before people. And I couldn't imagine that anyway to date. But yeah, that happened. It was that bad. So that was the first time equally I knew that a ministry to stay and be part of is Vineyard. Because I remember Emily Mochama dragging me into Vineyard all along, because when I joined campus, Kina Elder Alan Ooko, whom was my classmate in primary, dragged me to join ARC ministry. So I was caught between joining ARC and Vineyard, but during that experience, I got so attached with Vineyard, and I think I just blended in immediately, because they equally came all the way home to attend my dad's burial. So anyone where my grief began was post-burial, once everything had taken place and now everything was trying to assume normalcy. When I came back to school in 2019 January, things were not just okay, and I had to admit that, because all of a sudden now I had to pay my school fees. I had to look for my upkeep fees in school. My brothers were equally here in school. I had to take care of them. My mom equally had to ensure that everything was okay home. Being a firstborn son in the community I hail from, I have come to appreciate it. It's quite something. It's quite burdensome, but equally it teaches you a lot of things. Because I remember the very time that I suffered depression after the loss of my dad was in 2019, from the month of January or February. When I came back to school, I had left my items in the hostels. So someone, I think, just came and shoplifted everything, all my shopping, and left my suitcase alone. Took all my clothes, took all my pairs of shoes. So when I came back in January, I had to start from afresh, like from zero. My duvet was picked, my pillows, akacha to mattress peke, and all the bed sheets as well. So that is the University of Nairobi comrade life anyway. So I didn't get a room as well, the worst bit of it. So I was forced to move in with one of my friends whom we were with in high school. And as Mogere would love to spoil it, he would call it pirating. Yeah. So for those who have pirated, I'm also part of the list in second year. I think the whole of my first semester. So the moment it got bad, I think for the past, in February and January, I hardly attended my second year classes in school. And I couldn't admit it was as a result of probably grief that that was the time it hit me that now my dad had ceased to be out of existence. So I remember it grew so bad that I would spend my day literally doing nothing. I wouldn't attend classes. I would just be seated there or sleeping for a major bit of it. And then the night, because I couldn't sleep now, I would probably weep for most of the night until 3 a.m. and just pray and ask why all this had happened. The worst bit of this is a few people probably know this, but I left church because I couldn't just believe that of all the prayers I had made over a long period of time that my dad would be well, he had to pass at that point in life. So in January, February, March, no one actually saw me in church. If you did, probably just once in a while, and those were half-hearted moments of 2019. So what brought me to church back ultimately, I know you're probably waiting to hear that, is in March, in there was a day, so I bought a bicycle. So during the day when I literally I left attending classes. I know you won't believe that. So because our classes used to be in Kenyatta and Chiromo. Kenyatta is KNH and Chiromo is the campus we know. So when you had this squad in your class, who we had a group of people who that list, once you receive it, you just sign in for everyone. So I had no problem with attendance because my squad of people, they would literally take the signing sheet and sign all my attendance there. So no one really bothered about that. So in March, I think it was in March, yeah, I bought a bicycle in February that helped me do my exercises in the evening as part of exercise, just to help keep off my mind from the stresses in life that I was going through at that point. So I bought the bicycle in February and then I used it for some time. But I think there was a night I didn't really sleep well, and the following morning, it was on a Tuesday, the date was March 29th, I believe so. 28th or 29th of March, it was on a Tuesday. I had cycled my way up to KNH, and then now I was traveling back, and I think my mind was just far away, just having all memories back, and had grown suicidal thoughts a lot at that moment. So I had an accident along Valley Road, and that jolted me back to, I think, now what life should be, because I had to be admitted in the hospital and I suffered a lot of damages in my brain and in my hand, for which I have a scar to date. And for that moment, I think I went missing for 2 days. And when my siblings were literally, my eldest sister was trying to track me up, she couldn't. So this was how she found me. She found me through the friends that I had made, people whom she had known during my dad's burial. So she was like, please find out where Alan is and tell me how he is. So my high school friends were really helpful because I was pirating at one of my high school classmates. He's called Java. He's not an Adventist though. So through that, I think they were able to trace up where my bicycle was. It was parked at the senior the clinic where we have the staff clinic along Lower Status Road. And then on inquiry, they actually found that I had an accident and I had been admitted. So I was sick. My phone had been crashed. I had lost literally everything, and I was literally lying there. I know this is something traumatizing, but what made me come back to church was during that time, I had a very nice interaction with members in church. Because of all my friends, I realized that the closest friends I would ever have were people in church. And today I can still remember Kina Mera, they are all gone. Kina Bob, Kina Bosire, Kina Chalo. Those are people whom, through such experiences, they became very close friends. Now, to anyone who probably would be going through such kind of experiences at this moment, there's usually some they're called 5 steps. I didn't like this to get into a theory session as well, but for some reason I will have to mention this. There's usually 5 stages that some lady called, if you study psychology, we do it in our first year. She's called Elizabeth Cruz. She describes in 1969. She's a Swiss. She described some steps in grief. And number 1 was denial. Number 2 was anger. And number 3, bargaining. Number 4, depression. And lastly, acceptance. So in denial, you actually deny that this has happened. So like in my case, I had to travel home for a night just to go to the morgue and confirm that my dad had actually rested, And the anger bit of it was the second stage of dealing with the grief, when you're actually angry at yourself for not have been there, or let me say anger you probably angry at God. And for me, I was so angry at my mom because I learned part of the reasons why my dad had to succumb that fast. He had suffered a drug overload as well, though we didn't do a postmortem. But the results we had taken in Nairobi that I had indicated initially came out that my dad had suffered um, from cancer of the bone marrow. It's called osteomyelitis sarcoma. So he had suffered cancer of the bone marrow that had a little bit of more complications. And I was angry because my mom had taken him to the chemist over and over again, and he had prescriptions of new drugs, which, as a medical student, I later came to learn that it would bring a lot of liver or drug overload in the body. So someone would equally succumb from that. So I was angry at my mom. We had a difference for so long, but today we thank God the Lord was able to resolve. And I was also angry at God, like a lot. Why did you have to let this happen, God? And bargaining, the stage of bargaining, you're like, what if I was there to be present, to nurse my dad, to do everything, And since all that didn't pay up, I got into a depression mode for 3 months. And I also didn't mention that after the accident I had, I was referred to go see a psychologist, no, a psychiatrist. And I didn't know that there was a psychiatrist that I was supposed to see in KNH, because every campus has theirs. So I landed in the hands of a psychiatrist in main campus. But I think God was leading up all the way, because when I met him, I learned that he was an Adventist and his church was Syokimau. So he counseled me as a son and equally as an Adventist for that matter. And that literally just rubbed off everything. I just attended one session of the counseling, and when during that session, I found myself just weeping the entire session, and I found this to be really traumatizing. So I declared that I won't attend any of those counseling sessions again. I would deal with my stress alone because I knew what was eating me up. Uh, then acceptance came. I think over time, I just learned to accept that, dad is gone. Now I have to live with this. I have to take up all the responsibilities at home because I have a grandma who equally, my grandpa had long gone in 2009. So she's also a widow. My mom is a widow. And I also have my siblings whom I think I'm also playing a central pillar um, as a member of the family. So from then I have learned a lot to involve family and to involve church members, especially you ones that in this particular case. Get yourself friends whom you get along with, whom you can probably share your deepest grief and talk to when things get bad. You can't handle grief alone. That's one thing I came to appreciate. Um, you can suffer a time you would want to withdraw yourself from people. That is okay. But ensure as you do that you have people alongside you. And one of the most important things probably I would forget, but I need to mention is that in the process of when you lose someone you love, please take time to grieve. Like take time to weep, take time to appreciate that this person is no longer here in your life, and you have to weep. Because I think what didn't go well with me is when I lost my dad, things went on as if nothing had happened. So the moment of grief when it came in, it poured out very bad. Because I remember when my dad passed on, people were like, Alan, you're very strong. You mean you can do your exams and end of year exams? And surprisingly, why I'm saying medical school is technical in first year, we were a number of 642 in first year students, and 317 passed the exams. So 326 failed and were referred for supplementaries, retakes, and most of them deferred medical school. So doing my exams and passing with such kind of passing rates at that point, I considered it really to be something that I hadn't anticipated. So I really thank God. That's part of the reasons why I saw God in all things I had done. So um, uh, someone had asked me a question. There's a stage in grieving called complicated grief. I think in the next 2 minutes I will be done. How do you know that your grief is probably complicated? So one, when you have trouble thinking about anything other than your loved one's death, like every time you try to concentrate, but every time what is in your mind is just like, oh, I wish daddy would be here. And then number two, if you have a lasting longing for your deceased loved one, like you really long to be present with him. If you have difficulty in accepting that your loved one is gone and now you have to move on, if you have a long-lasting bitterness over the loss, if you have a feeling as if your life no longer has meaning at that point, and if you have trouble trusting others as well, you just want to be alone, if you have a difficulty remembering positive memories of your loved one and you only think of the negative sides, and if your grieving is one that gets worse instead of growing better, then that's a point for you to just know that things are not doing well. How to care for yourself, probably for the person who may go through this. One, exercise regular. Like exercise was one thing that later on came to really play a big role, because for me, I bought a bicycle. It used to take me off my, and then get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. You need to sleep and maintain a good circadian rhythm of sleep. You can equally try to explore new skills, such as cooking classes for ladies. For the men, you can do other things. You can join book classes. Uh, then you can call or see friends or loved ones who can offer support. And the particular friends whom I recall, older friends particularly in Vineyard, who were instrumental in my recovery. And one of them, I don't know if she's here, Justina. I think Justina joined this meeting. I would confirm. But I remember, because Justina is a little bit older than me and a lady called Yvonne, they would come and storm at my room and tell me, Alan, you're not right. Tell us what's going on. And we'd talk. And later on, I would just find myself getting well. And for that, I really thank God for such kind of friends. You can equally join support groups. If as a church we can develop such support groups, it would be really nice. And for the entire Vineyard, one thing that for me really stood out, if someone is bereaved, one thing that would probably stand out is, as a ministry, if we turn out to support them and to be there. Like for me, literally, I remember everyone who came home, who traveled to my countryside for my dad's burial. I would literally forget everything, but everyone who came, I literally can't forget them to date. Ranging from Kina Elias, Kina Frida, Kina Mogere. Those are people whom have remained to be my friends to date. It may not seem significant at that moment, but over a long period of time, it really counts. And then one thing I have forgotten, but I think during the question, there's one thing. There's one thing I'm actually forgetting, but I will mention it alongside. So let me end it there for the interest of time. Let me welcome Mogere to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I guess I am going next. Thank you, Alan, for sharing with us your experience. You guys can hear me, right?
Yes, we can.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you. So Alan has shared his experience about October 2018 when he lost his dad. Then I guess I will have to start by sharing my experience about July 2018 when I lost my mom. I'll just start from April. In April, when I joined, I was in first year. In April, Vineyard had it was called reunion. Yeah, Vineyard had a reunion in April, but I did not attend the reunion. I had lost my phone. Nilikuwa imeibiwa first semester things that happened. So I lost it. My phone was stolen. So my mom told me that she was going to spend Easter holiday with my grandma. So I just went to see my mom at my grandma's place because I wanted to solicit a new phone. Hiyo ingine ilikuwa ishaibiwa. And I went and stayed there for the 1 or 2 days that is Easter holiday. And I came back to Nairobi for school. I was knowing that in English or in compositions we write not knowing that will be the last time that I will see her. In June, the new phone that my mom had bought for me also got lost. So I did not talk to her a lot during that time. I kept pretending I have a phone because huwezi poteza simu mbili semester moja. How will your parents even feel? So I wasn't online, but I kept telling her, I am really serious. I am studying. That's why I've been keeping off online. And then I would just use my roommate's phone to just log in once in a while to just, somebody changed their number, and then you just join, and then you say, hi mom, how are you? And then you disappear again, and you tell her, I've been really busy, I've been studying. So really for June and July, I never got to interact with my mom that much because my phone was stolen. And then in July, I finished my exams. I remember for the exam, I used Benita's phone. Benita is here. She's B travels. I used Benita's phone to do the exam. I don't know if it was a tab or a phone, because huwezi fanya exams bila nini. But when I didn't also talk to my mom that week. I think she called me one day, and I was like, hey mom, I'm really serious, I'm studying, just don't call me for the rest of this week. I want to study. I want to really study for these exams. I don't want to talk to you for the week. My mom and I were really good friends. We used to talk as friends. I will tell her, I don't want you to talk to me, and she will not call me for that period when I will tell her, don't call me. And then some other time I'll tell her, call me, and then she would call me. Or she actually even, I loved that when we started singing, we sang song number 487, I Come to the Garden Alone, because that was a song that she sang for me. She called me one day, I think in June or July, I think it was early July, and she sang for me that song. And I really love it up to date. I don't know, I just love it from a distance. But when I finished my exams that week, it was on a Friday, it was June 13th, and I wanted to go home. But since my mom had started a new job at Waneka Fund, I wanted to go to Kakamega first and see her, and then I would go home. So that was on a Friday. I told her I will travel on Monday morning. So on Saturday, I don't know where I was doing. On Sunday is actually when my mom died. She was 39 years old, and she got hit by a vehicle. At a corner as she was crossing a road, I think. And so no one knew anything about it. On Monday, I tried calling her, hey, nitumie fare, and that sort of a thing, but she wasn't replying. So I think I borrowed Frida Owino. I borrowed her money, which I used to pay for my fare to Kakamega. So I traveled on Monday night, and I didn't know anything, or I didn't even think about anything. I just thought that maybe she was tired from work, and that's why she was not picking my call. I arrived on Tuesday morning. You travel on Monday night, you arrive on Tuesday morning. And I went to our office, and I was like, where is my mom? And then everyone was like, what? Oh yeah, actually we haven't seen her. Jana hatukumuona, na leo hajakuja job. And so, we started, everyone was like, where is she? Everyone tried calling her. Her phone was not going through. I had, of course, tried calling her. I'd called her like 40 times the previous night, the previous day, Junko Nataka Fair. And it was on Tuesday morning. And everyone now started calling her, and her phone was not going through. So we started looking for her. I remember I talked to Alan, I talked to Frida, and I talked to Marvin. I told all of them, please pray with me. I don't know where my mom is. She disappeared. And everyone was like, what do you mean disappeared? I was like, you just prayed. I don't know what. We're trying to look for her. So we went to a police station, wrote a statement, and then we went to a hospital, Kakamega Hospital. And I was there at the counter, and I was talking to this nurse. And I was like, have you seen this lady who looks like this and this and this? She's like, no, there's no lady who has been brought in sick during that period. Of course, my mom used to go to get sick, and then she will never tell anyone. She would get admitted, and then she will tell us when she has gotten out of hospital. So of course, that's what I was thinking happened. She was like, there's no lady who has self-admitted herself who is like that. We're like, no, we recheck. And then the nurse tells her, dead or alive. And then I looked at her like, dead or alive? What are you even saying? Of course, alive. Then she started saying, actually, on Sunday evening, there was a lady who was brought out here who was
Anyone who can hear Henry speak?
can't hear him also. The video seems to be paused.
Well, I think someone can fetch. Oh, Henry, I think has network problems. Hopefully, he'll join soon. Meanwhile, if we have any questions or any concerns, we can be airing them out, so that at the end of the session we can give a feedback to it. You can do it on the chat section for the time being. Welcome back, Henry. I think we lost you at some point.
Okay, where was I?
You
You're
were
at the counter. At the counter.
Oh, I was at the counter, guy. Okay, so you guys lost me for a minute. Okay, sorry. Oh yeah, so I was at the counter, and then did I say dead or alive?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So when this lady this lady told us, oh, this is the lady who fits the description you guys are saying, and she was brought in on Sunday evening, and then we were like, okay, so where is she? And then this lady tells us she is dead, and that was when I went and sat down somewhere, and for the first time I contemplated my mother dying. And of course you don't believe it. Trust me, you don't believe it. You just think about it. It just registers as an abstract concept. Oh, she could have died. And then so we had to go to the morgue and confirm that the body was hers. And that's how I found out that my mom had passed on. I don't remember a whole lot of things for the rest of that day. I remember crying a little bit. I remember crying a whole lot. I remember crying on a phone call with Marvin. And Marvin was, he was the first person I called. I hadn't even finished 10 minutes before knowing. Then I called Marvin and we were just talking. He was just saying, sasa utafanya, and all those feelers. He actually wasn't saying anything coherent, I remember, up to date. But Marvin called me every day of those 2 weeks when my mom passed on. And I'm really grateful for that, actually. He was always concerned even for the years afterwards. It's not just those days. And so that was how my mom passed on. And the subject of death is not something that our society likes keeping close to us. Something that we really like it being very far away from us. And the problem is that in trying to keep death very far away from us, we get an illusion of limitless time. We think that we can live for just it just gives you an illusion of limitless time. But once you understand that actually people do die, people do just disappear into thin air, then you'd actually cherish the time that you spend with people. So you remember me telling you about my mom. She would call me sometimes. I'd be like, no, I don't want to talk to you right now. I can talk to you some other time later. Or she would call me to sing for me, and I would, the way someone can sing for you on phone and you cringe. You're like, you put the phone far away. You don't even put it on your ear. You just put it far away, and then when they're done singing, you're like, that was really nice singing. But you cherish those moments that you have with your parents. And so for today, one thing I'll tell about grief is that from my experience is that people usually expect you to move on faster than you do. After 2 weeks, people will be like, for other people, the world moves on. But for you, that is the time you start adjusting. Things like denial is not even a physical, for me, it wasn't even a conscious phase where I was like, no, my mom hasn't died. It's just that you wake up in the morning, because your mind is not used to that fact. You just wake up in the morning and you're thinking everything is okay. And then you show up in the living room to have tea, and then you're like, Mom, where is the tea? And then the moment you're like, Mom, where's the tea? You realize, oh, actually, Mom is not there, and she's never going to be there. Missing, you usually go to your inbox and tell someone, oh, I have missed you. But it's a different experience missing someone who you will never see, knowing that they will never show up, not even one day. You'll just keep missing them, and you'll miss them eternally if it comes to that. You sometimes you get through those phases where there are friends around you, and you're comfortable. You're comfortable because your friends are around, but then they leave. Actually, me, I never used to sleep. It's terrible. I never used to sleep. I used to cry at night, and then you probably even hear your siblings crying at night. You're just sleeping, ni saa nane, unasikia tu mtu kwa room yake, sniffing, and then crying. You just like how someone is just crying. And you just wake up yourself, and you're seated on your bed, and you're wondering, now, what, you can't even tell them anything. But the presence of people around you is reassuring. Sometimes you even post on your status. I had this experience. I used to post on my status something, and everyone would be like, oh, we are very sorry. It's not always sad when you're posting on your status, like when you're posting, maybe you lose someone, you're posting on your status. It's not always because you're feeling sad. It's sometimes because you are celebrating a particular experience, or maybe you just love the clothes they were wearing that day, or that sort of a thing. Let's not be quick to, you see someone was bereaved and then they post their parents, and then the first thing you do is like, okay, every time you're texting them, you're like, oh, very sorry. Sometimes, just to be like, they're actually wearing a really nice clothing on that day. And when you lose someone, life changes totally. It is a lie to tell you that time heals all wounds, and time will heal your wounds. It doesn't. Time actually gives you an opportunity to form new routines outside this person that you have lost. If they used to come for you at school, then now you have to form a new routine where you'll have to take yourself from school and take yourself home without feeling bad. It's a process of adjusting. It gives you time to form a new routine, to build a new life. But in building this new life, you always acknowledge that your life will never be the same again without this person. And for me, one of the things I was supposed to also talk about briefly is how to relate with people who have been bereaved. And I'd say, this is just like casual advice. Don't put a positive spin on everything. Sometimes someone is crying and telling you, oh, I'm sad, this and this happened, and you're trying to put a positive spin. Oh, it's because of this, or everything in life has a meaning, everything in life has reason, or you're just trying to, the way you can just try. Someone is telling you everything sad, and every time you're trying to switch your story, you're trying to switch so that you put a positive spin on it so that it sounds nice. It's you can just try sometimes acknowledging that actually it's a sad situation. It's very bad, and they are sad and they're crying, and it's that way. So another thing, as you have heard from my experience and Alan's experience, grieving is different for everyone. Alan actually stopped attending church. I think my first reaction was getting out of Kenya. My mother had really talked to me and told me, I'd like you to stay close to me. And in this life, I love us to have like a really good relationship. And at that time, I was aggressively applying to go abroad. I wanted to go and study in Harvard or thereabouts. And my mom convinced me to stay around. So when she died, the first thing I did that August, I started studying for SATs, and I wanted to go away to America and just live there alone. So I'm just saying that it's different for everyone. So the grieving process is as complex as your relationship with that person. And because you can say that your relationship with everyone is the same, then totally when you're grieving, it's totally going to be as unique as that relationship you're having with that person. And so even if it's their stepmom or even if it's their uncle, as long as you don't know the intricacies of their relationship, don't try to say, ilikuwa tu ni uncle yake or ilikuwa ni grandfather yake. It's not that deep, but it can be, and this person can be really feeling sad. Don't comment on their appearance. Sometimes you usually see a grieving person smiling or laughing, and then you're like, hata probably asikii vibaya sana, so unaona anacheka, hata tumali tulikuwa naye tu alikuwa anacheka tu all throughout. You don't know what these people go through at 3 a.m. or 1 a.m. because I remember my sleep schedule. I think it has never changed up to date. You'd find me staying awake long hours at night. It started then. I used to be asleep. I used to sleep at 6 p.m. But you'd sleep if any time during that period. When I slept earlier than 9, I'd find myself awake at 2, and you cry yourself to conversions. Like you cry until you're shaking. Yeah. Anyway, time is up. Just to be there. Just to be there for them. Don't feel the need to fill up the gaps. Maybe you're talking with them and there's a silence. Don't feel the need to just fill up that gap with a lot of words. Sometimes you can just stay silent with them. They stay silent, you stay silent, be comfortable with that. Yeah. And then don't let the fear of you saying something wrong stop you from reaching out to them. Even if you say the wrong thing, just say, just to be there, be proactive, be active, take initiative, talk to them. It can go a long way. And people grieve for 2 years, 3 years, sometimes it's 5 years, and they have never moved on. I can't tell myself, I don't know myself if I have moved on. So be patient with these people, with a person who's grieving. They can talk endlessly about the story of the person who they lost, and it's a way of moving on. And that is the end of my presentation. And I hope we all learned something. So if you have any questions for any of us, we will take them. Alan will take questions first. Oh, and don't be afraid. There's nothing that, it's not like you ask the question, it will make us sad or anything. So don't fear about asking a question because it might make us sad. No, just ask the question. We'll answer you to the best according to our experience. Okay. Well, welcome, Justina.
Yeah, Justina. Justina has a raised hand. Probably let me begin with Justina, and then we have Effie.
Okay. Hi, you guys. Thank you so much for sharing. It's nice to hear from you guys after a long time. I think I haven't seen you people in like 2 years, right? It's 2 years, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So my question is to both Alan and Henry. When you think about your loved ones as at now, as it stands, like, do you still feel the same sadness that you felt before, or what's the feeling that you feel overall? I know probably some of you have already moved on, others are still dealing, but what's the feeling that you have whenever you have the thought of maybe your dad or your mom comes to your mind? Like, what's the feeling? Do you really get sad? Do you get depressed, or you just have a source of like peace just thinking about them? That's my question.
Very well. Thank you, Justina. Please tell us where you're joining us from. I think Fred would like to know.
Oh, should I turn on my video or not?
Yes.
Okay. I think my video is on. I don't know if people can see me. You can see me, right?
No.
Not from my end, so...
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so yeah.
I'm only seeing your nose.
Okay, let me play. Okay, so yeah. So yeah. So I'm joining you guys from Lusaka in Zambia. Yeah. So yeah, I'm from Zambia, and we had the school in the University of Nairobi, and I found myself in Vineyard in first year and stuck there until the way I was done with school. So yeah, this is where I'm joining you guys from.
Thank you, Justina. We are glad to have you. I have noted your question. Effie, you can take on. Let me also note that we have there's someone called Abere Okioi. My beloved uncle rested in 2021. I'm really sorry for that. But every time someone speaks of him, I start to cry. What can I do in that? That is well noted as well. So let me have Effie take one, and any more questions, then we can reply all of them at once.
Oh yeah. My question is, how do you handle maybe a friend who's been bereaved and like they don't want anyone to be around them, they just want to be alone, and you're thinking them being alone may take on maybe suicidal thoughts or something fishy. So how can you handle such?
Sawa, thank you. That's well taken in. Any more question, please? I hope you're not locking anyone out. Okay.
Hello.
Sawa.
Hello.
Oh, Sharon, yes. Oh, thank you. Yes, you can take one.
Okay. I lost my childhood friend in 2015, and since then I've been looking
Pole.
for someone to replace him. Yeah, sijaipata beshte ka yeye.
Oh, really sorry about that. I think we would have a discussion on that briefly. And there was one more hand from Sharon Nyaboke.
Oh yeah.
If you still
First,
have a
thank you
question.
guys for sharing. I wanted to ask, like, I don't know if it's still part of denial. Like, let's say if you lose your loved ones and you just can't go to like where you used to meet. Okay, like let's say last year I lost my grandparents, and every time I think of going back to like shags, it's a bit hard because I know most of the time we used to go see them. So how do you like overcome that bit of associating the place with the people? Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. So I would give a brief feedback to all that, and then give my closing remarks, and then welcome my brother Henry. So first of all, to begin with the question Sharon has asked, the last question. I talked of the counseling sessions I used to attend, and the reason I actually left it is the answer for your question. So part of the problems I had after I lost my dad, I actually resolved never to go home, because every time I would go home and see his graveside, it would give me a lot of burden and grief. Just going back home and seeing his bed, at some point he had to use crutches, which I didn't know. It gave me a lot of pain. So I was trying to avoid and just avoid all that. And when I went to the counselor, the very first thing he told me that uh, dawa ya moto ni nini? Ni moto. If you want to get over it, you have to go back home and stay and see, just reassure yourself as you see them that this is where we began from, and things changed from this point. So he told me that your idea of failing to go back home, it's very uncalled for. And he told me that, Alan, you have to go home, because I hadn't gone home for a long time since the burial. And at that point, I think I made a decision to travel home, went back home. I used to, at some point when nursing my dad in our shags, like our rural place, my dad would call me and it would just be the two of us for a whole week, tukipiga story and just walking around. So I would even go back home where we would stay, the two of us, and just stay all there alone and think about all that had happened. But as well, you need to understand yourself. If you have to be in the presence of people, then the better. But for Sharon, I would advise evading going there would make things worse. If you go there and have it in your memory every time that, this is where grandpa used to be, where this is where we began from, it would go a long way in calming you up. To the first question, I hope I have answered well. That's what I was advised, and it has worked for me as well. What Justina asked, I would end with it. If he asked a question about someone who lost someone and do not want to have anyone around him, I would submit that immediately someone loses a loved one, they definitely don't want to have people around them. And I would advise that you probably just be there with them physically, but not engaging them in phone calls or in talks or in anything, if they're the kind of people who do not want. Because oh, sorry, I have noted that question. Okay, so I would say that in the event someone passes on, give someone some time. I remember when I was traveling back home after my dad's the announcement of his death, I used to receive like 100 phone calls, messages streaming in and other things. But for the phone calls, I definitely didn't pick any of them, save for a few. But the messages, people can recall them, or they can read them sometime when they have calmed. But calling them at that point, people need space. They need to be left alone. If you can be there physically for them, would be better. I believe I have answered Effie's question according to my own experience. As again, I said, everyone has different experiences. There are some messages here. Every time someone speaks of him, I start to cry. What can I do in that? So in this scenario, I would actually tell you, okay, that you still haven't moved on from that scenario. But the date you have indicated there is 8th of August 2021. I believe we haven't gotten there yet. But as from what I see, I don't know if you're foreseeing his death, but from what I would deduce is probably this is someone who has recently passed on, and you're still going through the stages that I had talked of initially. So as well, what I would advise or what I would counsel, please, for now, you can avoid such kind of conversations for now. Because for me, having 2017, that makes sense. Having being comfortable to talk about my dad's demise right now, it's something I really wonder how it came to be. But again, it would be surprising for you that the more you speak about it, the more you lull the pain, or it goes away. So find more people, especially family or close friends, and talk to them. Like try to just tell them of the good experiences you had with these people. In so doing, find people who can understand or who can give you a listening ear. Repetitively done, you would heal from the thoughts of crying when you hear about it. You've also asked a question, if I may ask. Sometimes I think of the death of my parents and how I want the burial to be and how I will handle the situation. Is this good, or it may have an effect on my mental health? Honestly, please don't think about the death of your parents right now. And stuff the burial, it doesn't add up. I remember in my instance, I had a lot of control over my dad's burial plans and everything, but on the very day, everything just swept over me like I was not myself, literally. People had to come in and run the burial. During that day, you're definitely not present at all. Your mind is elsewhere. So those are things that I would forbid you to think about at the moment, please, for your safety. You've also asked about what about constantly feeling present and dreaming about them. Is it normal? Dreaming about death, those are nightmares. Those are not normal thoughts. Please do pray about them. As well as when such kind of things happen, find other things to get yourself busy and to avoid them. Thinking that someone would die is something really bad. Trust me, because it can torment you. And when it comes to happen, then the devil would be glorified, because he would like, yeah, I insinuated that this person would die by sending them nightmares, and they actually believed, and it happened. I remember recently, last week I was in a mission in Voi, and I dreamt that one of my brothers had died for 2 consecutive nights. The last second night when I woke up and all the members in the mission, I called them for a prayer, called my mom. It was on Sabbath. I told her, Mom, please pray. This is a very bad dream, and I believe it's the devil's working. Please help me pray to have it off. And immediately we prayed about it. It's never happened again, and for which I'm glad on that. I believe I have addressed all the questions have been short, save Justina's question, in my opinion. Now, if it makes any difference, I would say that there's a difference that it has made in probably thinking about it. One thing, if you tend to lose a loved one, equally don't ignore the important dates that you had with them. For me, one of the dates that I don't consider important, but someone used to make me feel them important, was my dad. Like my birthdays. I'm someone who, I think, I never celebrate my birthdays, or I've never celebrated my birthdays. But every time I had a birthday, like, my dad would be the first one to text me the night before and tell me, son, you're growing yet another year again, and I thank God for you. I pray that as you work strong into a man, that he would guide and be with you in all things. Those are things nowadays I remember, and I recall them fondly. And other things like his birthday, his death day, those are things that you have to keep them in mind. And I would say 2 things as I end. The very time my dad was ailing, and I knew that it was actually serious because my dad would be someone who would endure pain. But when it got out of hand and I sensed that things were not good, I would advise that people, the very time you have to share with your loved ones and your parents, please maximize on it, as Henry had pointed out. Because trust me, one day you will miss these people and you'll just regret the moment you didn't take. I remember at one night, I wrote my dad a poem, for which I'm glad he read. I used to love writing poems initially. So this is how the poem went. I would read two things and then end. I began, of gleam and glamour, of pure desire in an instant lambency of the soul, of days faded in the past, with just a thought to armor, of dawns cherished as a young boy, with calmness and assurance, sat on your powerful laps, and toward the vast lands of Ramogi. I know for sure a, peri- a, peri- a peripatetic mind was my reward in the life odyssey as we imprint. Sorry, I'm reading it from what my sister took from it, because it's my sister who wrote everything from my dad's phone after he had gone. So there's some things she left. So the poem continues to say, in the life odyssey as we imprint was tremendous, in the sole purpose of taming such a being into what he has grown to be today, Daddy. Uh, a nostalgic gaze to the skies, a Leviathan hope yet buoys my spirit. I hope Miss Viesta and Hester home your way. Of yet days gone right before us, Daddy, you're the best, my being and goals achieved by your honor. May you receive eternal peace, and yes, thank you, from your beloved son, Alan Were. This is the last poem I wrote my dad, and I was just appreciating for the days we had spent with him. And I didn't know that this was the last message. I actually sent it in September, and he passed on in October. So I'm glad he read it, though he died with all those thoughts. And then the very last one, in line with what Justina has said, there's a year after my dad's demise, I went to his graveside and I wrote this that very night. I said, I sit by your grave today, exactly a season since you left. Losing you and living without you has been a nightmare. It's been without your presence that I've realized how weak I am. It's been without your counsel that I've made the worst mistakes. It's been in your absence that my spirit has sunk lower than your grave. It's inexplicable how the world around can take a sudden turn when the last hope is gone and nothing left to hang on left. My tear glands itch and the strength to hold on dissipates. I wasn't the best for a son to you, our last conversation on such a day frail and dreary. Your only wish was to talk on, but the sinews failed you. And oh, when we hung up, the deep sling that struck was the deep sting that struck was for sure a struggle to break free the bond we'd so cultivated between us. I didn't know how much I loved you till we departed. I didn't know how much it was a treasure to have you till you left. Sitting and planning for your burial was but a what sorry. Sitting and planning for your burial was but a lost. Oftenly visiting your remains on the cold table was but a sight I could bear. Dressing you, Daddy, was but a tip on the iceberg, and so was placing you on the wooden craft at they call the coffin, and lastly lowering your body to the deep pit was a struggle I couldn't behold. I wouldn't help but cast my tear-soaked handkerchief to let you drink of it. Were it not for the strong, calming hands, I would have plunged into the red pit to be with you where you had gone. Those are words probably reminiscing of what had happened over the past 1 year after my dad had gone. But today, I would say, I would admit that things have not changed. Things are different. But what it has done, it has enhanced my relationship with my family and with everyone. I have learned now to be more closer to people, and more particularly to my younger siblings, because my last born brother is in class 1, for whom I consider now to be my sons, and to bring them up as well as everyone else. So it doesn't change. Henry said, time does not heal, it just lessens the pain over time, but the memories of a loved one would stick for eternity. And I remember when I was writing the eulogy for my dad, I actually did a lot. This verse came to mind, which I wrote, and I would love to read it as I exit. It's Job chapter 1, verse 21. It says, and said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. For me, one thing I consider is that our life, it comes from God, and from then we return. So I appreciate the life my dad lived. He died a very young man at 47 years old, but all in all, God had a plan. And I pray that as we do our daily submissions to God, we pray for the health of our siblings, our parents, our loved ones, our friends, and everyone alike. And with that, may the Lord bless you. Have a blessed evening. Henry, you can conclude the meeting.
Hi. So I'll just finish off. I think Alan and I are in agreement in most of the questions that Alan answered. Let me see in call messages. Yeah. So yeah, what he said is something that he and I share. So I don't think there's any necessity of me repeating the questions that he has already answered, because he answered them satisfactorily. Yeah. The only one that is different, that has a different experience, is of course Justina's question. What do I feel right now? I'd say that it's not necessarily. If you put the memories into context, then it's different every other time. I'd say that actually last month, this day, I woke up in the morning and I cried, and I thought about my mom and I cried. It was at 5 a.m. I was waking up to read for an exam. It's just different. Someday you wake up with these feelings, someday, but mostly I'm comfortable and happy and proud of the person I am becoming. I think I shaped myself in doing all the things that she would have loved me to do. I'm a firstborn, so I take care of my siblings, and I always, they do exams, you pray for them like your mom would, and you hope that they pass, and you send them success cards. You take initiative of all your relationships. Your parents usually take the initiative in most of your relationships, especially with older people. You just know them, or you talk to your uncles and your aunties because your parents are there to just keep that bond running. But when you lose a parent, then that means that becomes your own. It becomes your own initiative. You have to take initiative in relationships, and you just have to step up. I must admit, I wouldn't have been this kind of person I am today if it wasn't for even if my mom hadn't passed on. I was a spoiled kid, but right now I'm a good guy. Trust me, and I am happy and proud of the person I became down the line from that time. Also, there's something that I've been experiencing, that I saw Paulette ask a question about dreams and something. And trust me, I think I still dream about my mom. It might have happened even last week. But when you dream about a dead person, they never talk in those dreams. You just usually see them. It's just like you see someone. It's just, you can say, like, maybe you are in a room, guys are talking, everyone is excited. You can just dream that your mom was just there serving everyone food. But I don't think, like, in any of the dreams I have ever had about my mom since the time she passed up to now, she has ever talked. So it's just maybe your subconscious that's creating an image and putting her in settings where she was. But as Alan said, you can pray about it. But for me, it's never been like it's subconscious. So it's just like usually just sign it off when it happens. Anyway. Okay, if he has a hand raised up.
Oh yeah, just about your current situation, as in for both of you. My question is, are you always affected Father's Day or Mother's Day when people post? As in, how do you take it? Or
Me, when Mother's Day happens, I usually go to Ligala's inbox and I wish her happy Mother's Day, and I am so happy. Sometimes usually it's my policy that don't let what is going on, or the things that are dark in your experience, dim the light of other things that are really bright. So I usually go to Ligala's inbox and I tell her happy Mother's Day, Ligala, or happy Mother's Day, Doris. These are people who are with me during that period. They always kept calling me 2 weeks later, asking me, how are you holding on? How are you holding up? Actually, I had never talked to Ligala before my mom passed, so she called me one day and she told me, I just called you because people usually call people who are bereaved. I don't really know what to tell you. I don't know what to talk about with you because we never have any experience together. But I just wanted to call you and talk to you about what is going on in your life. And that was the first time we talked, and we talked like, I think, for 30 minutes. And ever since then, we've been talking, and we have a really great relationship. So I don't really get affected on Mother's Day or Father's Day. And of course, there are always these people who will be saying that this one is for those who have lost their mothers and mothers who have lost their sons. And Nini, I don't know, but I'd say for me, it's never a hard experience. Probably it's different for Alan. But yeah, that is my closing submission. And I just really hope that our experiences were impactful, not in helping you think that some people are going to die in the future or something of that sort, but in helping us cherish everyday life, everyday moments to interact with other people, everyday opportunities to love and care for those people who are very dear to us. I am just really happy that I had a really nice relationship with my mom, that she used to ask me about my girlfriend. She used to ask me about my girlfriend, and we'll discuss that in detail. And she used to call me son, but my brother ever read the name on her phone, and he thought it was Son, so he was like, kwani huu ni Mjapanese mgani ako hapa? But anyway, it's just those little things that you have, and so just cherish all those small things. If you want to call them, just call them that day. Don't say that I have exams this week, I want to call them. Just call them that day. If you feel like calling them, call them. If you feel like reaching out, reach out. Be deliberate about your relationships, cherish them. That's my closing remark. I'll welcome Madam Chair to do the closing prayer and handle the rest of the program. Thank you. Unless Alan wants to answer Father's Day.
Oh, well, so concerning Father's Day, for me, I have two approaches to this. Number one, at some point it used to traumatize me, so I just, on such days, I don't engage in my phone. I don't observe people's statuses, because in so doing, it can bring back bad memories. That is if you're still fighting it. But nowadays, I'm at peace with it. I had mentioned something. My dad had indicated me to join medical school without my own submission, because he had his own thoughts. So later on, he actually told me that I wanted you to join medical school and stay around in Kenya, because I was unwell, but I didn't want to tell you, and I wanted you to be around the family when I'm probably, if anything happens in the eventual end. So in that end, what it has done to me today, actually every time I look at my dad's picture, because I have a portrait of him everywhere I go, it reminds me that I need to study hard and probably save people who might be losing their parents at any point due to illnesses or due to other things. So it's an inspiring hope for me that there's hope for those who are suffering or who are losing their parents every day. We can do something to change their lives or to make their experiences better than we do. If you have any questions or any or concerns, you can reach to any of us. For me, I'm actually very available to speak on such kind of things, more particularly if you have gone through this experience. We can have some time off and pray about it. And interestingly, my dad's doctor who did the last surgery on him, today is my mentor. So we meet every time I'm home, and we really talk about so many things. In a way, it helps us also to just forget about everything for a moment and just have life moving on. But all the same, ensure that your life goes on. You're still happy, you're stress-free, you still eat the bowls of rice that you used to do with them or without them, and just ensure that you are at peace with yourself and with God. Thank you. Welcome, Effie.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much, Alan and Mugere, for sharing your experiences. I hope we've all learned. And yeah, okay, sijui niseme nini. Asanteni sana. We'll just offer the final prayer and call it a night. Then we'll meet next week. I'll request Sharon to pray with us, to offer the final prayer. Sharon Nyaboki.
Okay, let's pray. Thank you, God, for everything. Thank you for Vineyard Ministry, and thank you for everyone who's here today. Thank you for how you've kept us, Lord, and all the stories that we've shared. And most importantly, thank you for the hope that Christianity gives us, Lord, that death is not the end, and that even Christ himself overcame death, Lord, and at the second coming, we shall give us the gift of immortality, Lord. Thank you for that, Lord, and we keep praying that you'll continue guiding us, Lord. May you be with everyone who's grieving at this time. May you comfort them, Lord, and may you continue guiding us in everything that we do. Give us hope, and May you walk with us, Lord. Forgive us for our sins. For it's in Jesus' name I pray, trusting and believing. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you all who joined as visitors. Karibuni tena next Saturday. Good night.